Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where in the world you're joining us from. Welcome to our expert panel, Analytics for All, Democratizing Your Data with GenAI, brought to you by our friends at Alteryx and Astronomer. I'm Brian Mink, co-founder and president of Data Science Connect, the world's largest data and AI community. Today, we're excited to welcome hundreds of attendees from all over the world to discuss how GenAI is transforming data democratization by making advanced analytics accessible to every member of an organization, regardless of their technical expertise. Today, we'll discuss how to leverage GenAI tools to empower your team with the ability to analyze and interpret data, fostering a culture of data-driven decision-making and innovation across your enterprise. We'll also talk about how leading organizations are dealing with new challenges around this technology, like data access, data quality and governance, and data privacy. We're honored to hear from a distinguished panel of experts today. Peter Martinez, Product Marketing Director at Alteryx, Supriya Besha, VP and Head of Data Science at Advanced Analytics at BBDO, Murali Venkataraman, Executive Director of Systems R&D Leadership at Light & Wonder, and Dr. Francis Boykin, Director of Advanced Analytics at AT&T. Before we begin, a few housekeeping items. To make this feel a little more in person, we suggest you add a photo to your profile and include your bio, LinkedIn profile, and other information you want your fellow attendees to see. Next, please take advantage of the Q&A and chat features throughout the talks. We'll be dedicating a portion at the end to Q&A, so be sure to upvote the questions you'd like the panel to address. If you're wondering where your organization stands compared to others on your AI journey, check out the poll question in the right sidebar. And finally, to learn more about how to leverage GenAI for data democratization, check out the calls to action below throughout the webinar from our sponsors, Alteryx and Astronomer. Now, without further ado, let's kick off our panel.
My name is Peter Martinez, and I'm a Product Marketing Director of Cloud Analytics and AI at Alteryx. If you're unfamiliar with Alteryx, I'll just tell you a bit about us. We're on a mission to empower all employees to make faster, more insightful, and more confident decisions with data, regardless of their technical skill level. And we do this with our low-code, no-code platform to support every step of the analytics journey. And lastly, just a little bit more about me. I've worked in the data and analytics space for about 10 years, and I've held roles as an analyst, as a technical consultant, as a strategy consultant, and as a product marketer as well during that time.
Excellent. Murali.
Right. Thank you, Brian. Hello, everyone. I'm Murali Venkataraman, Executive Director of Systems R&D. I have over 25 years of experience in software development, information, and management, of course. Of course, I started when I was 5 years old. Currently leading the data solutions team, building awesome machine learning models, and looking forward to a very interesting conversation here.
Excellent. Supriya.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Supriya, and I lead data science and analytics at a media and advertising company called BBDO. It's an Omnicom company. And with 18 years of experience in data, I have had privilege to lead the projects and which created revenue streams and saved money using data science and analytics. Although we are into creative business, that is advertising, but we bring science into everything that we do. And my core responsibility is to make sure that strategists who are working on creatives have the insights on clients before they even get onto the whiteboard. And this closely aligns to today's topic, which is analytics for all. And I'm excited to share my insights and engage in this important conversation. Thank you.
Thanks, Supriya. Welcome. I want to jump into our first question, which is how do you define data democratization and why is it more critical now than ever? So why don't we start with you, Supriya? Give us your thoughts on that one.
Certainly, and such a great question. And I'm trying to turn on my camera. Okay, I'm here. So in layman's term, data democratization means making data accessible to everyone in an organization and not just the IT department or data specialist. To me, I make sure that any employee, regardless of their technical skills, can access, understand, and use data to make informed decisions. And think of everyone giving in the company the same chance to use that important information. And why it is critical, especially now, world is moving faster and decisions are made even quicker ever before. Therefore, access to valuable data can help accelerate decision-making, improve customer response, ultimately giving companies a competitive edge.
Great point, Supriya. Peter, do you want to take us next?
Yeah, I'd be happy to agree with everything that Supriya said. I think that data democratization is really just about making analytics more accessible and also more approachable for people who just may not be subject matter experts in data. And I think that what makes data and analytics so exciting is that it's really a part of everything that we do. And it's just simply impossible to look at an area of the business without data-driven activities and to separate that out as something completely separate. So that's why, the demand for analytics is at an all-time high. And that doesn't mean that everybody needs a PhD in data science. That's where data democratization comes in. It's about scale. It's about empowering knowledge workers to perform certain analytical tasks without having to submit a ticket or wait for a data science team that might be at capacity because they're working on more complex, larger projects for the organization.
Yeah, great points. And we have all these incredible technologies at our disposal now. And so there's a lot of questions about how do you push that out to more broad than just the data and IT teams? What are the things that you need to put in place to make that accessible to more people? So great points, Peter. Murali, why don't you take next?
Absolutely. Thanks, Peter and Supriya. Let me take you back to 1997, right, to give you an analogy. I was working as a MIS engineer at India at the time when I first got access to the internet. Suddenly, I could connect to anybody around the world and access any information by click of a button. That was mind-blowing, right? But what is important is that sparked a flood of innovation ideas, right, for my team and myself. Some turned into great products, while others didn't quite make it. But the intuition here is democratizing the internet at that time triggered innovation, and you know what happened, right? The .net.com boom, web, IoT, AML. Now bring that into your organization now. Imagine the data like an internet within your organization, right? So basically, in simple terms, data democratization is making this transformed data a universal, accessible utility to everyone in your organization, right? Why is this so critical now? Like Supriya and Peter said, right? We are now swimming in an ocean of data. We collect data from IoT devices, application, user behaviors, patterns, usage patterns, structured, unstructured. Every organization is collecting ocean of data. So in order to make a quick, smart decision, we need to develop a culture of curiosity, and everyone needs access to this data, right? It isn't just about making data accessible. It's about transforming your organization into a place where the innovation and data-driven decisions are a part of your DNA.
Great points, and great points about the transforming your culture and making data a part of your organizational DNA. It's not enough to just roll these things out and say, here's some technology, play with it. You have to be able to do something with it that actually impacts the bottom line of the business. So that tees up our next question really nicely, which is, what are some of the biggest challenges that organizations are going to face when democratizing data access, and how can they overcome these obstacles? Obviously, if you've had a certain subset of data or IT folks who've sort of been the owners of your data, who are very well versed in some of these more technical issues and in some of the benefits, but also challenges associated with using data, and now you're rolling that out to folks who maybe don't have that training and expertise and literacy, that's going to come with some challenges. So what are some of those challenges as you guys see it? And why don't we start this one with Peter?
Yeah, absolutely, Brian. I think as you noted, there are a litany of challenges. I'll just call out one in particular that we see quite often, which is addressing skills gaps. And I saw this as a consultant. I've seen it working at Alteryx as well with our customers. But in reality, there are many knowledge workers who simply just don't have the time or the capacity to learn skills with steep learning curves like coding or software development. And they shouldn't need to, right? Because for a lot of knowledge workers, their work doesn't just revolve around data, it revolves around other functional areas of a business or an organization. So, with modern tools like low code, no code solutions, knowledge workers can quickly ramp up, and they can perform necessary analytical tasks. Simple things like blending, preparing or transforming data much quicker than they might have needed to in the past. Artificial intelligence is another solution here, I think. It can also play a role here, and not just generative AI, but AI more broadly. I mean, for example, traditional machine learning and artificial intelligence can be baked into products to accelerate analysis or to surface and explain quantitative insights for people in terms and language they can understand. So that's just one of the biggest challenges that we see, and some example solutions that we see as well.
Yeah, great points, Peter. So Priya, why don't you take the next one? What are some challenges that you're seeing?
Right, and I really acknowledge what Peter shared here. And apart from the data skills, there is no one challenge, and it actually depends on where your organization is in the data lifecycle. So if your company is just starting in the data lifecycle, and just I'll say taking baby steps, probably technical infrastructure is a problem. You don't know where to start, what platforms to get to your company. And then and if you mature a little bit more, then are your functions and the data from different functions are integrated, or are they operating in data silos? So they are different, depending on where you are in the data lifecycle, you need different solution. But to me, and what I have observed, is that infrastructure is a key, I'll say, starting point. And we do need a scalable solution. And these days in market, the great news is that there are so many platforms available, and mostly are subscription or user-based platforms. So depending on how much usage you have in the organization, you can choose your own subscription. For resolving the data silos, I think making sure that you are consolidating data from various sources, say marketing, supply chain, or your media, you're consolidating it into one accessible repository. We also call it data lake or data warehouse, and that becomes pertinent. So these are my top two challenges on data democratization.
Yeah, great points about infrastructure really being key to how you roll all this out, and thinking through, what are the other changes that you need to be making besides just, okay, we need to put this data in folks' hands. It's like, what are the other things, like our various different data silos, that we need to be pulling together to even make this, to really give this value for us. Murali, what's your take?
Thank you. Great points, Supriya and Peter. First of all, I want to make it very clear, data democratization isn't a one and done deal, right? It is a journey. It's basically transforming your organization from your current state to the future proof state. The major challenges I see in our organization and in our work is primarily, like Supriya mentioned, establishing the pipeline, making sure the data literacy is across the organization. And being in a gaming industry, data privacy is very, very important. We are globally present, right? The GDPR, PII, every country has got its own privacy regulations that we need to take care of it. And also analytic tools, we need to make sure we collect information, structured, unstructured, everything to a data lake. But when you translate that into a data visualizations, meeting for each and every business unit, so that is where the challenge comes, right? So how do we tackle this, right? I mean, I'm going to put some general thoughts on how to tackle, because of the variety of folks may be attending from different industry here, right? The first, you've got to start figuring out where the organization is in the data democratization maturity level, right? So very simple, without getting into details on the levels, you just see if your data is stuck in a silos, right? Only accessible to a few departments, every department using their own data, right? So then you got to start there, basically defining the process and making sure the decisions are not made on gut feeling. It needs to bring in some practices and try to bring them centralized. And That's Supriya touched that, right? Setting up the infrastructure and getting everything, bring the data into the centralized one. And again, you may be in the next stage with the centralized data, but restricted to specific rules. So how to tackle that here? The goal here would be to define data governance frameworks, right? Obviously, data governance also boosts data quality. Peter and Supriya talked about it that little bit as well in a different flavor. So once you have this standardized management processes across the hand, then enhance and making sure that data literacy is among your stuff, right? Remember, the organizations must continuously evolve, right? Like I said, it is a journey. It depends on your size, product mix, maturity in data collection, and tackle the challenges, go step by step, establishing standards, governance, and making sure keep pushing until you become fully data driven, taking decisions on the data driven, not gut feeling. So that's my 2 cents here.
Yeah, great points about just having a framework, having a step-by-step process, things that are important to follow when taking on these initiatives. I'm going to go ahead and jump to the next question. Great points on the challenges that organizations face when democratizing data access. But now I want to talk about more of the positives, the things that are really the most potential and the things that are most exciting about data democratization, particularly as it relates to how GenAI can influence data democratization and further it. So can you guys share some examples of how you've seen GenAI specifically being used to enhance data accessibility, collaboration, data democratization across the organization? Why don't we start with you, Murali?
Absolutely. Imagine you are working at a company, right, where getting data insight is as easy as chatting with a colleague. You are a marketing guy or some other financial guy. I want to know how much I made in the last 3 quarters. Just type in conversational. You don't have to be an expert. And then if you come. So GenAI can help you with those type of conversational type of thing, right? Providing insights with the demo. It is a game changer. And every company, even everyone here, you already, you maybe start using that. And your organizations are transforming now. I love the Uber use case in the real world, right? Uber's Michelangelo platform. If you have heard of it, I strongly suggest go and read that predictive to generative article they have in their sites, right? Michelangelo is the heart of their AI operations. It helps teams across Uber to access high quality data and collaborate more effectively, providing real-time insights, right? And automating complex data sets. Not only that, they use a GenAI tool called Drag and Crawl. That's an interesting tool because it automates the mobile app testing. Drag and Crawl can simulate user interactions, test app functionalities across different scenarios. And most importantly, right, you will love it. It resolves issues autonomously. That's the power of tools and now, right? So I can keep on going. Spotify uses, not only think about within your organization, I would say, think about the entire ecosystem around your organization, the stakeholders, internal and external. Spotify uses GenAI to personalize playlist. Walmart use GenAI to streamline their supply chain. Unilever use GenAI for market analysis. Airbnb enhance customer experience. Stitch Fix. So I can keep on going, right? So one thing is, it is not about having data. It is about making data works for you seamlessly and efficiently.
Absolutely. Francis, are you able to hear? I have audio now. All right, we're going to pick up with Peter, and we'll come back to Francis. I think we're getting close. So Peter, tell us about some of the most exciting use cases you're seeing around GenAI in enhancing data accessibility and collaboration.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll build on this notion that Murali just laid out, which is that generative AI just excels at specific tasks that have totally changed the game when it comes to analytics. And I think one of the best examples here is natural language interfaces. And so when I think about one of the biggest value propositions of generative AI, I think about what a natural language interface can do for your analytics environment. And what that means is just the ability to simply type instructions into a chat window and kick off a task. So we've really thought long and hard about this at Alteryx, and we've seen some tremendous value with this. So for example, we've created a use case assistant called Playbooks in one of our products. And this use case assistant can recommend and prototype, build high value use cases for anyone. And all the user has to do is type in their role, their function, their industry, or their company as context. And Playbooks will generate use cases and actually even build out a proof of concept for them. So this is something that before generative AI, this was a long back and forth conversation between, somebody in the business and an analytics or data team. And it would take weeks to even get to a prototype or use case solutioning or all that. You can really expedite it quickly with the help of generative AI. We're also building a copilot that can help non-technical users transform, prep, and blend data in an enterprise-grade analytics platform, which makes analytics even easier for non-experts to execute. So when you think about, hey, maybe 30 years ago, if you wanted to join two tables, you had to know SQL, right? And you had to write the correct SQL syntax to be able to join your tables and blend your finance data with your sales data. Fast forward to maybe a decade ago or so, or a little bit longer, you see the rise of low-code tools, no-code tools, drag-and-drop tools, where, hey, you don't have to know how to code. You just have to understand the logic of what you want to do and learn some basic GUI steps, right? Well, now we're in a world where you can actually just start to type that into a chat window and say, hey, Copilot, I want to join my sales table and my finance table, and I want these columns returned back to me. And we're there, right? So it's incredible, and it's really just quite a game changer when it comes to the accessibility of analytics for folks who may not be technical experts.
Yeah, great points. I hadn't heard the concept of a playbook before, but I think it's a great one. And in particular, I think a lot of people's fear in data democratization and in spreading these technologies throughout the enterprise is that folks are going to go rogue, or people who don't have proper training or literacy are going to do things that are not best practices or things that would be encouraged by the organization. And so I think by giving playbooks, by saying, here are the use cases, we've already done what needs to be done, basically, and you're just here sort of deploying it as you need it for your business cases. I think that's a great way to deal with that problem and give people the power of these tools without necessarily unleashing all the chaos that can sometimes come along with it. Supriya, what are your thoughts?
Well, when you ask this question, I'm reminded of NVIDIA's CEO, Jensen Huang's quote that create computing technology such that nobody has to program. And I believe that ability to access the data without having to learn SQL coding or any other programming language is a major takeaway for me, especially when it comes to GenAI. Peter has touched upon some great examples, so has Murli. Even the customer relationships have improved where problem solving is more self-serving with more efficient chatbots in place these days. Even resolve time has gone down for customer reps with GenAI, available to them at fingertips. So this is just one example that I'm taking, and there are several examples available where GenAI examples have been used. I personally have witnessed GenAI used for collab on code generation or QA and testing, where tools like GitHub, Copilot, Peter touched upon it, which is powered by OpenAI's Codex, or Duet AI, that's a Google version of Copilot, where you can just write a text prompt and you don't need to select or join tables, but you just have to tell the platform that, hey, I want to see these two tables come together and give me sales data or marketing data or media data. So that has helped to, that's the level of transformation that now we are seeing. And so yeah, I mean, Gen AI has really changed the game altogether.
Great point, Supriya. The next question, and we just got a question in the chat about this as well, is how do you balance privacy and security with the democratization? I think that's one of the biggest challenges that organizations are going to face when you're allowing new people to have access to different data, and you're allowing departments like marketing, for instance, to have access to data that maybe they didn't have before. There are some very real compliance concerns around that. There are some concerns about potential breaches, potential misuse of the data. So, and also just making it accessible to more people increases your cybersecurity risk. So, what are your thoughts on those issues, and how do you see organizations dealing with those? And we'll start with you, Supriya.
Certainly, and I think nothing comes free. There are consequences of Gen AI, and especially around data privacy. We have been hearing a lot around that. And there are a few things that an organization can do to ensure that we have a proper quality and governance going on. So number one is that establishing, if you have data in your company and you have a platform somewhere, even if it is you're starting off, establishing a data governance policies is pertinent. Start, because you will not reach, you will not create like 100% policy. It's error and trial and error. So keep improvising is what I will say when it comes to data governance policies, but do start. Another thing is establishing access controls and security measures like role-based access control, and that comes with cloud. If you have cloud environment, so making sure that somebody in IT or in your data team have the ownership of controlling that access control. I have also seen that these days companies are investing a lot in creating literacy and awareness program for data governance policy. So making sure that even when someone joins, even before someone logs into their system, they have the mandatory trainings going on as to what those important things to understand and how to catch those areas where something goofy is going on. Another thing is that, and of course, IT department or your data department cannot just do everything. So having every function where we are touching on the data or taking data from there, have data stewards. Make sure that there is someone in the function who is the owner and has a neck on the line to make sure that we are following all the data governance policies, and nobody's using it for their own benefits, but for company's benefit.
Yeah, great points about data governance. Who has access to what? When do they get access to it? How long do they have access to it? For what purposes can they use that data? How is that data going to be stored, protected? All of those things, very critical when you're figuring out the strategy around how to de-risk data democratization. Peter, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Supriya made some just great points. I agree with everything that she said. I'll bring some additional context here. I think when it comes to policies and procedures that are in place when it comes to governance are huge. And those should be cross-functional, right? I think that's one of the biggest takeaways with where we are today is those should involve people from across the business. You should be talking to legal counterparts, but you should also be talking to business leads and sales and in other areas, right? Analytics professionals should definitely be involved in that. Like bring different perspectives to the table and create the policies that adhere to your business and that are going to move your business in the direction that you want to move it. I also agree with the points about role-based access controls. There's a lot that you can do when it comes to governance from a technical standpoint, but then there's also just a lot that needs to be done from more of a people and process standpoint as well, and a policy standpoint. So it really is a holistic solution. When it comes to data quality, I think that more than anything, it just really elevates the importance of prep, blend, and transformation work and building sort of that foundation of data quality upon which you can start to programmatically use more AI in your business. All of the data processing work that needs to happen to make data fit for analytics use just becomes even more important to get right. And with this in mind, I think it's super important. Again, we talk about, there's a question in here about the intersection of data democracy and AI. I think it comes into this question as well here. When you could adopt data prep solutions that are infused with AI that can make analytics more approachable and accessible for people, those can be some of the tools in your tool belt to help ensure that data quality is coming out correctly, to help ensure that governance processes are being followed. So I do think it all ties together for an enterprise.
Yeah, great points, Peter. Murali, what are your thoughts?
Always it is challenging to respond after Supriya and Peter covers all the key points, right? I totally agree with what they covered. But the question, there is a slight color I want to add to what they said, right? So how do we ensure data quality and governance? First of all, if data is widely accessible with strong security measures that they talked about, right? The organization is already quantitatively, if I can kind of term, matured, right? So employees are data savvy and integrate analytics into their daily operations. So quality and governance go hand in hand here. So in our case, we have advanced governance that automatically ensures the data quality and compliance, being in the gaming industry. So advanced governance is very important, right? So what I mean by that, we establish very detailed governance policies to manage quality, security, and compliance, right? They define a very clear standards on how we collect data, how we bake security in each and every stages of the data pipeline before it hits a data lake, storage, what are all the governance and standards needed to store the data, governance around usage across the organization. So the governance is very, very important. That takes care of the data quality, right? And like Supriya and Peter said, right? Everything needs to be authenticated and authorized, any access. Authentication, authorizations, you can create group policies and assign those group policies to the individual teams. So that will dictate what level of data, what type of data they can access, type of thing, right? So depending on their roles, only they can get access to the relevant data. That's very, very important, right? And of course, we use a lot of monitoring tools. Continuous monitoring tools. Those tools basically provide indicators whether there are any inaccuracies or inconsistency, integrities, if it deducts, anomaly deductions are there at least, right? So those are all basically automated validation checks are done, because it is important at every stage these validation and integrity checks need to happen. You don't have to wait until the back end where all the data is collected and then do that, right? So that continuous monitoring is important. And not only monitoring, actionable feedback loop is important here, right? We also use a lot of tools, even from machine learning, GenAI related stuff, or machine learning, whatever it is, right? Even the AI side of it. We use a data robo platform, which automatically allows us to build models and takes care, automate a lot of other stuff, right? And already I talked about to privacy, being in the gaming industry, GDPR, CCPA, and every jurisdiction, the regulations are pretty tight. And most important, also continuous training is needed to educate the employees about the data governance. Training is very, very critical. It is not having a standards or advanced governance in place or practices defined, but continuous education. Everyone in the organization need to understand why they are supposed to do certain things, why they are not supposed to do certain other things, type of thing, right? And also we very much focus on predictive, not only predictive, but prescriptive analytics using GenAI. So what is prescriptive, you may know, right? It suggests action and help achieve the desired outcomes, right? It combines not only just data, but algorithms and machine learning. Everything goes hand in hand to provide a prescriptive analytics. I'll keep on talking, so I will stop here.
Great points, Murali. I think one thing that I really took from that was leveraging platforms to automate a lot of this work for you, a lot of the repetitive work or things that are critical to your ongoing data governance as you roll out data democratization across your organization. Figuring out not only how do we do this at a point in time, but how do we keep our data high quality? How do we ensure that we have governance across our organization, that we have these policies that are consistently implemented and nothing's falling through the cracks? And some technological solutions are one really great way to ensure that that's happening and that it's more automated. I want to jump now to a question that we're seeing in the chat. I've got a couple of different questions that are sort of touching on this, which is, where did data democratization and GenAI merge? In what way is GenAI really a seismic shift in terms of data democratization and enabling fundamentally new things that were maybe not possible before, or not possible at the same scale or at the same level of quality? And to what extent is it just one new technology among many others that's part of the data and tech stack for various organizations? So where do you see GenAI as potentially a seismic shift for data democratization? Peter, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, no, totally. It's a great question. And I think really what it comes down to is that AI and machine learning, and particularly generative AI, they lower the barrier to adoption for analytics. And that's huge, because if you think about analytics historically, so much of the challenge with analytics has been in barriers to adoption, like having to be an expert or having to be super proficient in a coding language like SQL or Python or R. So just as we move forward, I think you'll see a lot of innovation that is going to bring the barrier to adoption down for analytics. And my hope is that this will just empower more people to be data driven and to explore and try data analytics projects across organizations without feeling like they need the help of an expert. And don't get me wrong, there will always be a need for data and analytics experts. That's not going to go away. But there will never be enough of them to service all of the needs of a data-driven business, right? And I think AI and machine learning can really help to create this future. And I'm excited about it because I think analytics is fun. I think it's interesting. And I think the best people to do analytics in the business are often the people that know the most about their functional area. And so that's a big value proposition here, again, from AI and machine learning, is that by lowering the barrier to adoption, you can push analytics out to the people who know the most about sales or know the most about human resources and know that data. And now they can actually interact with it. They can use it. They can model it with the help of AI-driven assistance.
Yeah, really, really great points, Peter. And I think that lowering the cost of various use cases, I think, is a really critical one, which is if you don't have to hire a data science team to do every use case, now there are a whole lot of use cases that are possible that maybe were not worth it before. If you're able to democratize it to people who already are working on something similar or who are closest to the use case, now there are just things that you wouldn't have done as an organization because it was cost prohibitive to do it, that now you can add a lot of value by doing through democratizing data, which is empowered through data democratization. Murali, what are your thoughts? Yeah. Murali?
Sorry, I was briefly got disconnected. What was the question, Brian? Sorry.
We were just talking about one of the questions that's been popping up in the chat is to what extent is GenAI really a seismic shift in terms of data democratization and empowering new use cases or new things that organizations previously couldn't do, versus how is it just a natural evolution of many of the other things that data science teams have been working on for years?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Even in our case, right? So we used to have a complete data solution team, data scientists who start with the traditional way of analyzing the data, right? Now with the GenAI in place, The GenAI tools we can create assistants. If you already, you may start hearing about, we are in the next stage of chatbots, right? Chatbots are the legacy now. So we are now working on assistants and orchestrate assistants. So each of the assistant, you can define a role, you can task. Like, for example, you want to do some data cleaning, you create an assistant. And then that assistant can do the data cleaning of your pipeline and hand over that output to another assistant whose role may be defined as doing a exploratory data analysis type of thing, right? So that assistant can do that and then give it back to, again, yet another assistant to determine what type of algorithm is better to use for it, right? So to put it simply, without getting into the nitty-gritty details, now you can have GenAI is so powerful. You can create multiple agents you can create for each and every role, not just the data scientist role or whatever it is. Anything, whether it is a financial or whether you want a marketing department, everywhere you create for each of the roles, you can create agents. And then you can orchestrate data between the agents to get the final results. So that's the biggest advantage now, right? Now, the prescriptive, which I talked about, is basically it can come from the machine learning models, AI and everything. So they go hand in hand with each other.
Yeah, great point. Agents are, I think, one of the most exciting GenAI use cases for sure, and the ability to train personalized agents on various tasks. Really exciting, and I think high growth area that we'll be seeing a lot of in the next few years. Supriya, what are your thoughts on this topic?
I think Peter and Murali has touched on most of the things I wanted to say. I'll only add that the line between AI and data democratization is disappearing. It's all about making the AI available in a most user-friendly way and to all in the organization. So I think I have nothing more to add what Peter and Murali has already shared.
Yeah, thanks for very good points. I want to get back to another question in the chat that's a good one as well, in terms of how the work environment is going to change. So as we increasingly democratize data, as we make new tools available to folks who are not data experts, they may be subject matter experts, or they may be on various different business teams. How are their job functions going to change? How's the work environment going to change? And we see this a lot right now with several organizations have announced that they are laying off certain segments of their workforce, but they're not necessarily contracting. They're hiring. Like Intuit recently announced, they're laying off 1,800 people and hiring back 1,800 people to do different things. So we may see an increase in that as organizations kind of reskill their workforces or reevaluate what kinds of talent they need in light of these new technologies. So how do you see organizations dealing with these human resource challenges or opportunities, and how do you see different teams kind of growing as analytics are more democratized? And we'll start with you, Supriya.
Certainly, and such a great question. And I have seen that in my workplace too, where I lead a team of data scientists and analysts. And we see that now every day our counterparts who are more business people have access to GenAI. And then we sometimes, my team members come back and say that, hey, are we becoming redundant? And my answer is no, we are not becoming redundant. Yes, this is the most challenging time in the history of the world, I would say, because we are seeing such a major shift happening. Even, we can hear the market, changing. There are layoffs happening, then rehiring, which you covered, Brian. I think, and this has happened in every era. Every new technology get introduced, we upskill ourselves and then get back to work. So there was a introduction of cloud computing that came in. Yes, it was the major disruptor, but what happened? All we did was upskill ourselves, become a little more wiser as to how to use it, and then apply it in our work. So similar is going to happen and is happening with GenAI, where upskilling opportunities are being available. by the organization or outside. So upskill yourself and then see that where you can bring in that value. So yeah, that would be my takeaway.
Absolutely. Murali, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I totally agree with this, Supriya, right? So if you all remember long back when calculators were introduced, right? There were protests by mathematical teachers, universities, and students, everybody, right? So they didn't realize at that time it's going to improve their quality. It's the same thing happening now with the AI and everything. It's not going to replace that. It's going to improve the way how we work, and it's going to trigger more and more innovations, in my opinion, creating more jobs. I can give several examples, right? Healthcare. Now NLP systems are helping doctors to query patient data instantly, right? And they can diagnostics significantly to improve patient outcome. So is it going to replace the doctor? No. But maybe if there are two doctor offices, one effectively using and giving the results, and other office doesn't use the AI, so that's where the difference is going to be, right? And the finance, fraud deductions, right? So how many times we are keep hearing that it is hacked and personal privacy information is gone. But if we have a strong security system and fraud deduction systems and using the AI, that's going to protect our data. That's going to help in that, right? And you are seeing when I walk into the any places, right? I bought one washing machine. The next day I get an email on, other accessories and everything in there. So how they are able to do that? All these recommendation systems to reach out, right? So, like Supriya said, is it going to be disruptive? Yes, there are some roles that may be getting impacted, but there are more and more roles are going to come in, right? It may be a temporary phase, some may be losing jobs, but it's going to open up a completely new paradigm shift. A lot of new roles and new opportunities are going to come, and more innovations. We don't know, in another 5 to 10 years, we'll be living a completely different life.
Absolutely, it is definitely an exciting time. Sometimes a scary time, but I think in more ways an exciting time around all these technologies. So, great points, Murali. Peter, what are your thoughts about the future of GenAI and data democratization for the workforce?
Yeah, I think Murali and Supriya brought up some great points, and I totally agree with what they said. I think really good way to think about this is there will. You might see some job displacement, like you mentioned, Brian, with Intuit kind of shifting the strategy. But as Supriya and Murali pointed out, these tectonic shifts happen in technology innovation all the time, right? And what often happens is reskilling, upskilling. These just become part of the job. I think where we'll see the biggest impact is in the nature of work and how work gets done. So if we think about that from an analytics standpoint, I think let's just look at like one little tiny piece of an analytics process. Like let's talk about prepping and blending and transforming data. Maybe in that process or task, you'll spend less time configuring tools, writing queries, building out pipelines manually. You'll spend more time maybe reviewing the outputs, or you'll spend more time figuring out what the next pipeline should be to be built. Maybe when it comes to modeling, you'll spend less time building the model. You'll spend more time evaluating the model, describing what it does, explaining it to your business counterparts, right? Exploring conversations, talking about how it's performing, and up-leveling the data literacy of the people around you. So I think the biggest impact that we'll see here is not necessarily in sort of shifting labor percentages, but you'll really just see a different type of workplace evolving, and you'll see a change in the nature of what your role is, and hopefully what we're seeing a lot of innovation is focusing on sort of those more tedious or mundane tasks for professionals, whether that's in analytics or in other functional areas, and allowing their human creativity and ingenuity to really thrive and be more sort of front and center throughout the workday.
A great point, and hopefully one that will make the work experience better for a lot of people, and not worse, one that will eliminate some of these mundane, repetitive tasks. So I want everybody to kind of look into your crystal ball now and look ahead. to how we see the future of data democratization evolving in light of GenAI. We've talked about a lot of the immediate concerns and opportunities, some of the things that we might be looking at over the next maybe 2 to 5 years. But let's look even further and think maybe 10, 20 years in the future. Where do you see the future of GenAI and data democratization evolving? What are some of the most exciting use cases that you see on the horizon, or some of the things that you think we need to be cautious about? We'll start with you, Murali.
Yeah, that's a great question, right? So there are a lot of AI ML related advancements and GenAI related stuff that I'm really fascinated with, right? But related to what I do, our work, a few things I would like to highlight here. One is AutoML. For example, the HTO.ai, if anyone has used, right? So they allow user to create, validate, and deploy machine learning models without needing deeper technical expertise. Data Robo is another one, right? This capability basically to do the AutoML, right? So this democratizes the advanced analytics. Peter talked about a lot about analytics, right? So just imagine I'm a HR person or a finance. If I can build a predictive model tailored to my need without technical expertise, how does that sound like? That's where the technology is going. A HR person or a finance person may be able to create. I think we are already there. They can create their own model, just drag and drop objects, create more model, and then start using the predictions and other thing. Okay, what is going to happen in the next 3 months? What is the trend showing up based on the last 5 years? What are all the trends from the competitor company? Those type of things, they will be able to just put the files in a folder or everything publicly available information, or even querying their own enterprise data sets by creating the model themselves without knowing what data science is, how to build models and everything. That's the AutoML, power of the AutoML going. Augmented analytics is another thing, right? So which is basically, again, it touches the earlier question. This may reduce the need for a data scientist, but Gartner predicting that by 2025, augmented analytics will drive most of the new BI and analytics deployments, which is scary because we are talking about only months here, right? 2025. So data scientists need to evolve into the other technologies, not just the traditional data scientist routine task here, right? So that's something. Embedded AI, edge computing, everywhere it is IoT, right? It is IoT proliferation everywhere. Edge computing is another one where there will be intelligence based on the AI at the edge, where the IoT devices are itself to take decisions. It doesn't have to be a centralized, a large size prediction.
Yeah, great points, Murali. Peter, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't have a crystal ball, but I will try to think into the future and kind of think about what we might see. I think we're definitely going to see a rise in more multimodal sort of interactions with AI. And so what I mean by that is, today a lot of what folks have done, at least interacting with generative, is to interact with some kind of prompt-based interface, most notably probably ChatGPT. And that's typing, right? But I think what you'll start to see in the near future really is a rise of, maybe voice-based, and that's already in existence today. But I think you'll see more and more of that, right? Or AI systems that are connecting to call transcripts in real time, things of that nature, right? So I think you're just going to see more and more multimodal, visual, those types of innovation when it comes to AI and analytics. I think this is going to make a lot of organizations have an honest look in the mirror about where they stand when it comes to data management. AI is and AI related initiatives are a great sort of target to drive towards, but in my humble opinion and with a background of being in analytics, like, it's the top of the pyramid. So many of these things that we've discussed today are the foundation of the pyramid. You need data quality, you need data management, You need processes, policies, all those things to be underneath, so that your AI is creating value for you, right? And so I think that from an enterprise level, you'll see, or I hope that we will see, a much more of an emphasis on some of those foundational elements of what good analytics needs moving forward, because that's not going to change, right? So those are just a couple of thoughts, I think, from my side that we'll probably see here in the near future.
Yeah, well, the points about multimodal and that's expanding across lots of our lives and careers in lots of different ways that we may not even realize that we're using GenAI, but it's built into the products and it's a seamless experience. Supriya, what are your thoughts?
I know we are on the top of the hour, but I'll leave with 3 trends, and this is more of, I'll say, macro trends. Number 1 is self-serving analytics, which means that making data access and analysis easier for everyone, even the non-tech people. And that will allow users to query and interpret data effortlessly. My second one is a greater emphasis on data literacy, which means not only just at the workplace, but also even you will see it happening in school and colleges, where there will be special coursework introduced, and it's already happening. But there will be more emphasis on data-related subjects, or which becomes a part of their curriculum. And third would be more laws and regulations around data governance. We already are seeing rise in those, but I think there will be more happening in that area, where privacy, security, ethical guidelines will be implemented to ensure that we are having responsible data usage and we protect the sensitive information.
Yeah, great points, especially around education and literacy, as well as the regulations. I think we're going to see a lot more of those coming down the pike as folks start to get their arms around this, and we start to understand a lot of the different ways that AI is going to impact everything that we do, and data becomes more democratized. We are out of time, so with that, I want to thank our expert panel for joining us. This was a really great conversation. Thank you as well to all the folks who asked questions in the chat. Very, very good insights, and contributed to a very interesting discussion. So thank you again for joining us. If you missed any of the webinar today, or you want to rewatch anything, the recording will be available for just a few minutes after the webinar concludes. If you refresh this page, should be at the same link. And I want to thank you again to our partners, Alteryx and Astronomer, for making this webinar possible. And we'll see you all again next time. Thank you.